Welcome in, everyone, to Flyover Footy, presented by Noble Ice Vineyards. My name is Matt Baker, here for another midweek look at St. Louis City SC and taking a peek around the league to see how other MLS teams are faring, especially in the Western Conference, and how City stacks up across MLS. This week, though, is not your average midweek episode, for better and for worse. Breaking news across 4 separate channels for St. Louis City as Kyle Hiebert has been named to Jesse Marsch's first Canada men's national team camp ahead of their 2 friendlies in preparation for Copa America. Isak Jensen has officially been sold to Viborg FF, and in what can be regarded as the worst kept secret across the transfer landscape, at least as far as City is concerned, and one where City was cheeky enough to lean into it, Cedric Teuchert is your newest signing to St. Louis City SC. But unfortunately, we have to start it off with some very bad news, and I'll let you hear from it directly by Coach Bradley Carnell after training on Tuesday.
Yeah, unfortunately, Thomas, matchday -1, picked up an injury, with our activation and then a bit of the shooting at the end. So he got aggravated, one of the tendons in his ankle. Not sure of the whole diagnosis, but he's going to undergo surgery. And unfortunately, he will be out for the rest of the season. So it's quite a big sort of intervention there that's needed to be done. So he was in a really good way. He is a really good way. He's done magnificently for the team. Plugging in a spot where we were lacking. He took on the ownership responsibility to go into a position that wasn't his as the 6, and embraced it and really made that spot his. He's going to be missed for sure.
This one hurts, folks. No other way to say it. As you heard, our 24-year-old Czech midfielder, Tomas Ostrák, who has 1 goal and 2 assists on the season in 12 appearances with 8 starts through 14 games, has been lost for the season due to a tendon injury in his ankle that requires surgery. It's an absolutely devastating blow for the young midfielder, who was St. Louis City SC's one of their first signings back in 2022. He saw time with City 2 that year. He had a tumultuous 2023 campaign, getting starts, subs all over the field, but really finding his footing this year in a different role, deeper in the midfield, covering for Eddie Leuven's absence. Ostrák has proven to be one of the best pressers on our team, no matter where he lines up, and he's taken the new challenge that Bradley Carnell gave him and really ran with it. As Eddie Leuven returns, we had hoped to see Tomas Ostrák continuing to get minutes, possibly higher up the field, as he gains some confidence and has been in great form this year, as Bradley Carnell alluded to just moments ago. Our hearts and thoughts go out to Tomas, as at this point, we can only hope to see him ready to go when 2025 and training camp starts, but that's all way too early to think about right now. Best of luck, Tomas, in your surgery and your recovery. St. Louis is behind you 100%. But what this means for City in the immediate is, per MLS roster rules and guidelines, St. Louis City SC does have a season-ending injury list for which Tomas Ostrák can be placed on. City would still be responsible for paying his actual salary, but we'd get some potential relief to the salary budget in signing a replacement player. If we did sign a player, they would take his spot on the roster essentially, but we can only sign a player at or below Ostrak's salary, which is $801,000. We would be able to replace him with an international player, so we still get that slot available too. Lutz has some decisions to make on how to proceed with this, because any signing as a replacement player would need figuring out once Ostrák returns. He's still under contract for a few more years. One thing Lutz has been consistent about is a long-term approach to signing players. So whatever happens will not be without a lot of foresight into the future. Now with that out of the way, we move on to the bright side. Kyle Hiebert, let's start with him. He's earned his second ever call-up to the Canadian men's national team camp after his call-up last year in March of 2023. Hiebert will join Canada in camp after St. Louis City's June 1st game at Inter Miami. He'll take part in Canada's friendlies on June 6th against the Netherlands and on June 9th against France before head coach Jesse Marsch chooses his Copa America roster. While attending this camp and these friendlies, Hiebert's going to be unavailable to City for their June 8th home match against the Portland Timbers, and potentially more depending on if he makes the Copa America roster. In that competition, Hiebert's going to be competing for likely a backup center back role with Canada, as they have 5 center backs called in. Kamal Miller from the Portland Timbers, and Luc de Fogaroles from Fulham in the EPL. Derek Cornelius from Malmo FF, Moise Bombito from the Colorado Rapids are also competing for what you would assume to be a backup spot. We don't know if Canada looks to keep 3 or 4 center backs, but it's doubtful they keep 5. However, Hiebert's skill set we know is on the defensive side, but Jesse Marsch is a Red Bull grad. He comes from the New York Red Bull system, and being a graduate of that system, it lines up very well with what Hiebert's been playing here in St. Louis. Hiebert has to be seen as having at least a little bit of an advantage in his familiarity with the style that Marsch will be employing. And I asked Kyle Hiebert what he thought about being a member of Jesse Marsh's first group of call-ups as Canada's national team coach, and how his time at left back benefits him in the Marsh system. His first group of call-ups as head coach of Canada.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I said, he's a head coach with a very high pedigree, having coached in the MLS, also in the Premier League, and so I'm excited. It was cool. Got a chance to chat with him last week.
Did he give any indication that your work as a left back here played into that, or is it strictly center back?
No, he did mention some versatility, able to play with my left foot, right foot, across the back line would be useful, especially looking for depth for the squad. Just having that is very helpful.
Also this weekend, on Saturday, Viborg FF announced a long-standing expectation that they would exercise their option to buy St. Louis City left winger Isak Jensen. The 20-year-old, now former City forward, has been on loan with Viborg since last summer, and he's impressed during 28 appearances with three assists and 7 goals for them. This purchase option opens up a roster slot for St. Louis City. It opens up an international slot and a U22 slot as well. A lot of flexibility is being afforded in knowing this now, heading into the summer transfer window for Lutz Pfannenstiel. Best of luck to Isak Jensen, as he's now under contract with Viborg through 2027. And he will also make another appearance for Denmark's U23 team, and just as he was with St. Louis, under contract for 2027. The next is the worst kept secret in St. Louis, but it has now been made official. On Tuesday morning, just before 8 a.m., St. Louis released through their app an update that 27-year-old Cedric Teuchert has officially signed with St. Louis City SC. This will be a 2-year deal with a club option for the second half of 2026. Teuchert will occupy an international roster slot and be a TAM level player, consistent with his reported salary at Hanover being in the about $800,000 range. Lutz Pfannenstiel had this to say on Cedric Teuchert. Cedric is a proven goal scorer that will help improve our roster. His quality on the ball, whether it is dead ball opportunities or inside the box, is a strength that will be beneficial for this team. One interesting thing about this announcement is that Cedric Teuchert was referred to as a midfielder on multiple occasions in the announcement and on social media. On the midfield designation, which was used multiple times through multiple channels, I don't think this was an accident. The first thing this indicates to me is that he's not competing with Klaus for minutes. Labeling him as a striker or a center forward is going to indicate a competition of sorts with Klaus or Sam, but he's more fluid in what he's going to bring. He could be a 9 if we need to, as he was a center forward with Hanover, but he can also drop back to a 10, slide up to be a second striker, a 9.5 type thing, which is what Nico Gioacchini often said his best position was. So if you're thinking about a like-for-like replacement to Nico Gioacchini, this could be that very same person. And it's no surprising because Cedric Teuchert was one of the first names rumored after Nico Gioacchini had been sold that St. Louis was interested in. Teuchert brings on-the-ball skill into the final third that we've lacked this year at times and will help to facilitate goals just as much as he'll be looked to take those shots and finish. So if you look at his heat map, it reflects all of this. A lot of top of the box, just inside the box movement versus being closer to goal as that hold-up striker. Head coach Bradley Carnell had this to say on Teuchert when I asked him his potential as a Nico Gioacchini replacement in the City system. That hole that Nico Gioacchini left when he left earlier this year.
Yeah, again, I mean, he could, play slightly deeper. He could play slightly higher in the Nico Gioacchini role, right, the second striker role. So, again, we've got different options where we think we can plug him in. But what it does do is it ups competition. And I'm really all for competition. And that's just really good when we get, a high caliber, high level player who we feel can fit in our system. It just keeps, everyone, honest, I would say.
Timing about Cedric Teuchert is going to be interesting. The club released info that he will be available for selection after the July 18th MLS transfer window opens, but when will he be able to start training with the club? The biggest thing that's blocking him from training is his work permit, ITC visa type issues. So training is work. So he can train with the club when his work permit and paperwork are approved from immigration. This is different, obviously, than that July 18th date that the club had. So Bradley Carnell went on to talk after training on Tuesday about how he hopes that Cedric will have a summer holiday. He'll have some time off here in the next couple of weeks. They hope to get the paperwork taken care of. So he's in and he'll be available for selection shortly after he's available to from that July 18th date. With the first game, obviously, after that being against Sporting Kansas City before the League's Cup break of sorts where we have FC Juarez and FC Dallas, before returning to MLS action on August 24th against the Portland Timbers. I wouldn't expect any immediate action. SKC might be out of the question, but I also wouldn't expect to see any pictures of him in training in the next week or two. Let's set some expectations appropriately on that. That should cover all of the big city news over the past few days, at least. So let's have a lightning round approach to some MLS matches. We've already gone well long on our St. Louis City SC news and report. Looking at some of the matches across MLS, the standings where City sits ahead of their match against Inter Miami next weekend, there is a full match week scheduled for Wednesday, March 29th. Phil and Santi are going to be with you on Flyover Footy later this week to have a full look at Inter Miami on the other side of their upcoming game versus Atlanta United. But right now, this past week saw 6 draws on the week, and only 6 teams scoring more than 2 goals. All of those happened in the same 3 games against each other, no less. So let's look at 5 of those matches. You had Colorado drawing Minnesota and FC Dallas drawing Real Salt Lake. Both of those games ended 3-3. These are notable results as RSL and Minnesota both sit 1 and 2 in the standings in the West, while Colorado stays 6th and FC Dallas sits 12th. So you had some lower teams picking up points against those top 2 teams in the West. The third place team in the Western Conference, the LA Galaxy, defeated 8th place Houston Dynamo 2-1 after more of the same from the LA Galaxy. Goals by Gabriel Peck and Ricky Puig, both having 2 assisters on them. So they had tremendous run of play opportunities from the Galaxy that have consisted and been consistent in this matchup. In a match towards the bottom of the table, Sporting Kansas City falls again. Good news there, but this time to the Portland Timbers 2-1. The bad in this is that Portland jumps St. Louis with the win in the standings. But you have the funny, the good, however you want to look at it. Sporting KC falls to last place in the Western Conference with 2 wins on the year and 7 losses. Finally, our upcoming opponent, Inter Miami. Like I mentioned, they do have a midweek match against Atlanta United, but last weekend, they defeated the Vancouver Whitecaps 2-1 in a match made famous by the absence of Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, and Sergio Busquets, none of which traveled. Though this does go to show that they have more weapons available than just Lionel Messi and company, namely behind Robert Taylor and their other designated player, Leo Campana, who scored their 2 goals this last weekend, helping Miami to remain atop the East with 34 points. Looking at the standings across MLS, in the East, it's more of the same. It's Inter Miami with 34 points, FC Cincinnati 33, New York City FC 26, and the Columbus Crew with 24. In the West, it's a little bit tighter. Real Salt Lake, like I said, first place with 29 points. Minnesota United, 4 points behind them at 25. LA Galaxy right there tied on points at 25 with Minnesota United. And LAFC, 1 point behind them in 4th place with 24 points. St. Louis City sits 11th place currently, tied with the Portland Timbers for 16 and just 1 behind the Seattle Sounders, who have 17 points on the season for that last playoff spot currently. St. Louis 3-4-7, 3 wins, 4 losses, 7 draws. They have a -2 goal differential. And if you look at most of these standings on goals for, goal difference, they're basically 11th place. So their standings reflect a lot of these underlying numbers in goals for, goals against, and goal differential. That's it for everything we have midweek for Flyover Footy. Hope you enjoyed a lot of the city news that broke this week. Proud that we were able to send it to you and give it to you. Thank you for tuning in to Flyover Footy. Like I mentioned, tune in on Thursday night for our stream where Phil and Santi will have a full breakdown of Inter Miami, and they'll definitely touch on some of the news we saw and if anything else happens, because it's been a loaded week here for St. Louis City. My name is Matt Baker. Thanks for joining me, and I'll talk to you later.